All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Well, welcome all. I know it was a big weekend. You curled up with the Jada Pinkett Smith book, and you just can't get enough. But time to start the new week. Put the book by your side, girlfriend. We're going to get this thing going. Kim is here, everybody. You may have seen her on the Nikki Maduro show, which I do enjoy. It's on every day before us over on the Nikki Maduro show channel. And Tony is here. Tony actually did a whole reboot. You know, you got to go into the reactor zone and you got to bring your tongs and do this. It's like, Tony, I got to go on the air right now. You're messing with my head. He said, yeah, I know, but you're stepping, dude. Dude, you can't go on like this.
Why are you yelling?
So I said, all right, geez. So I get my hazmat suit on and I go over to the big tower that he's built for the computer. It turns out at the end of it, it wasn't my computer, it was Tony's computer.
Why are you yelling?
God. I don't know, man.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Exactly. Casey gets it. Where are those pictures I was supposed to see?
And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
All right, let's get going here. This is going to be fun. And there's a lot going on, and we'll get to all of it today.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was great, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because my weekend had Courtney going out and doing stuff on her own without me.
What? That makes it a good weekend for you?
Oh, my God, I pray for those weekends. So that let me sit on the couch, do my edibles and Tenuta wine, and watch movies that she probably would have no interest in, watch football games, which she definitely would have no interest in, and not feel guilty about it. You know, I don't want to force a movie on her. So one of my favorite things to do, and this might be the case in your relationship or with your friends or whatever it might be, any relationship, doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, is to, do something together, watch a movie, in my case, and or watch a TV show that we both enjoy, and then we smart-ass through it. Courtney's very funny, okay? And she's just so biting and just terrific. And she also has really smart takes on things. And lastly, she's smarter than I am, so on some of these complicated movies or series, I can turn to her and go, honey, who's that guy again? What? He's the guy who double-crossed her in the original, an hour ago. So I really love that. But I also feel like responsible to find something we both can do that through, either a TV show or a movie. So without her in the house, I can watch whatever I want. I don't have to feel guilty about it. And I can get totally wrecked. And I like to do that too. So.
Well, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
Morning.
I try to answer all questions thoroughly.
Where are my weed smokers at?
I don't smoke it, but I do see the virtues in, taking the edge off a little bit.
It's Courtney Day on the Mark Thompson Show. She's coming by later.
She is. She's coming on bottom of the hour with she's very, we didn't have her last week.
No.
And like an athlete who was on the IR, the injured reserve list, she's particularly ready to get back in the game. She's got the pads on, uniform looks good. She's ready to ride in. So that is what's happening bottom of the hour. We are going to touch on what's going on with Donald Trump. I've got a big law and disorder coming up as well. And oddly, or perhaps appropriately, Donald Trump falls into law and disorder. And we'll talk, of course, about what's going on in the Middle East. Some great opinion pieces. I don't think you need an opinion piece to know what we've been talking about since this whole horror began. I'm talking about the most recent horror with the attack of Hamas, and that is essentially, I don't see a good option for Israel. And I think going into Gaza to root out Hamas, as I've made the point many times to John Rothman, I don't know what people think that is, but it ain't a long weekend exercise. It would take months at best. Meantime, you're killing a civilian population. You're destroying a livelihood that's already a withering livelihood in Gaza. And more to the point, let's assume you could do it after many months, let's say. You'd still have to now set up, maybe with the international community, an administrative managerial strategy for Gaza. You've gotten rid of Hamas, good, but now you have to set up something to govern Gaza. You now own Gaza. So that's my issue with going into Gaza. I mean, it's a humanitarian catastrophe, okay? So don't get me wrong. That's the first thing. But after that, my point is, whatever strategies you've laid out, they better include what's going to happen after you own Gaza, because that's what you're going to be getting when you move in that way militarily. Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
How do you tell the good people from the bad?
Right,
I mean,
there you go.
because you could have a person who is completely innocent and lovely, or that person could be lying, and you don't know. So how do you really ever get to the bottom and the heart of the matter? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like there has to be a different solution. There has to be I don't know. It's so complicated. It's why I think about it, and probably all my thoughts are just so like, oh, everyone else has already thought of that, Kim, that would have worked and we would have done it long ago. But it's just it seems so insurmountable. And I don't know how the Israeli people or the Palestinian people ever have peace, ever. And their generations even down the road, how they ever have peace.
Well, it's harder now probably than it's been in a while. I would say that they were close to peace under Yitzhak Rabin. The accords that were forged with Arafat and Clinton, I mean, that seemed to be a real chance. And since then, there's been a general descent into what you're describing, which is, I just don't know what you do. Now, to be clear, Benjamin Netanyahu is bad news, man. He is the wrong guy for this moment. And he's the guy who runs Israel. He didn't protect the state of Israel. I mean, this place that is the one place that Jews are supposed to feel secure. That this is really where the sins of the past, of anti-Semitism, of the Holocaust, etc., won't be visited upon these people who live in this strong state supported by many in the international community. But it didn't work out that way. This brutal slaughter massacre, which included every bit of barbarism and medieval aggression that you could imagine, this act happened on this strong man's watch. So he feels politically the need to punch back. And as I've just sort of summarized, I don't see how you punch back with any degree of strategy that takes into account the real effects of punching back. I get that you want to punch back. It's your ego, it's your anger. And so I gave Biden credit for having acknowledged that 9/11 propelled America into this awful situation with Iraq. And Afghanistan, by the way. But Iraq was just a fool's errand. It was clearly on the agenda before this whole thing happened. And we've talked about it. It was just they were looking for an excuse, really, to go into Iraq. That's what George Bush was doing, and he did it. So I thought that Biden did the right thing by suggesting that Netanyahu not be ruled by that impulse. It's funny, just because I hadn't planned to start on this, but just because we are talking about Hamas, The guy who is a big deal in Hamas, Mohammed Qasim Sawalha, he ran operations in the West Bank. Where is he? This Hamas terrorist, this high-up official in Hamas. Is he dug in some bunker in Gaza, in the West Bank? Is he in hiding? No. He lives in London. He lives in a state-funded home in London. Sawaha recently purchased his council property after living there since 2003. Got it for £112,000. It was a discount because of the UK's right-to-buy scheme. It's a 2-story property, comes with a garden and a garage. This is the guy who's high up in Hamas. It's located 10 minutes from the nearest synagogue, they say. He entered Britain through the use of a relative's passport in the 1990s and has since claimed British citizenship. I'll remind you, Hamas is a recognized terrorist organization, designated such by the United Kingdom. So the weirdness gets weirder.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He can work remotely, though, just like everybody else, which is what he's doing. 62-year-old is working remotely. They launder money. There's a lot more to Hamas than just... there's a lot of money laundering and stuff that's not just slitting people's throats, and you get it.
I've gotten a lot of messages lately regarding this conflict, and not a lot of messages are telling me, don't believe the mainstream media. The mainstream media is all pro-Israel. Well, the last time you told me not to believe the mainstream media, you were telling me not to get the COVID shot and that the vaccine was bad, right? And that COVID wasn't real. I just feel like there's so much in America that is unknown, that you don't know what to believe or what's true or what's not true. It's very difficult for the average person to really get a handle on what's happening there.
This from the chat line from Doug. Mark, I think you're wrong. Hamas drew first blood. They started the fight, and they don't understand anything but violence. It's unfortunate. Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I think that's absolutely true. Hamas is a brutal, bloodthirsty terrorist organization. I wouldn't dispute that in the least. I don't see where we disagree. Maybe was I talking about with the history of the region, maybe? The history of the region, as I've told you, it really depends when you walk into the movie on the Middle East. Because you can go back as far as you want, you know. Go back to biblical times. I mean, there were Jews and non-Jews living there, okay? It's all a question of when you walk into the movie. So in this case, Doug, you're talking about the movie walking in now, like what just happened. I was maybe referencing what had happened prior to that, but I completely agree with you. There was something else in the chat. Let me get to it, and then I want to, then I'll double back to the Middle East and to Sidney Powell. On the relationship. Lori says, oh my God, get two TVs and have together watching time and separate watching time. Time apart and some separate interests are healthy. At this point in life and relationship, feeling guilty for needing some own time is silly. Lori with some tough advice for Courtney and Mark.
Look at that.
Well, Courtney does, well, she's going to be here in a few minutes and we can question her further. I will tell you one group that really is doing well because of the, shall we say, hostilities, to be polite about it, in the Middle East, and the fact that they could even grow in the spectrum that's included and also the intensity. There's one group, at minimum. I'm leaving aside the parties. I mean, I understand there's Hamas and the Israelis and Hezbollah. But there's one other group that is really excited about all this. I'm sure they would say they don't love war, but they benefit enormously from it. And I'm talking about, anybody? International arms dealers. That's right. The Middle East war adds to a surge in international arms sales. Israel's conflict with Hamas, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the rise of China have brought a boom for weapons makers and a chance for Washington to build closer military ties with other countries. Days after the assault by Hamas ignited this new war in the Middle East, shipments of American weapons began arriving in Israel. Smart bombs, ammunition, interceptors for the Iron Dome. The conflict between Israel and Hamas is just the latest impetus is a ding word, behind a boom in international arms sales that is bolstering profits and weapons-making capacity among American suppliers. We're not only the United States of guns, friends. We are the United States of arms suppliers. The surge in sales is providing the Biden administration with new opportunities to tie the militaries of other countries more closely to the United States. It's not just commerce, right? It's a real relationship. Even before Israel responded to the deadly Hamas attack, the combination of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the perception of a rising threat from China was spurring a global rush to purchase fighter planes, missiles, tanks, artillery, munitions, and other lethal equipment. It's also being driven, all of this, by the rapid pace of technological change in warfighting. So even well-armed nations have to buy new generations of equipment to stay competitive. Billions of dollars in orders.
Come see America.
Come see.
Yeah. Want to kill people? We got you.
Come for the Grand Canyon and a picture at the Golden Gate Bridge, but stay for the weapon systems we'll sell you, everybody. Yeah. Billions of dollars in orders are pending from allies in Asia, driven by the perception of a rising threat from China. That's the real thing. I can talk about that, if not today, maybe tomorrow. You begin another conflict of the sort that might be driven by China and, the South China Sea, you've got yourself a real problem. If the United States would find themselves, I think, very, very stressed to the point of their inability really to handle it. Worldwide military spending last year on weapons, personnel, and other costs hit $2.2 trillion. Wow. So there's that. And then there is blowback on what's happening in Israel and in Gaza. And the ripple effect is extending to universities, as you know. They're university endowments that include a lot of money from interests connected to, I'm talking about people and foundations that care very much about the survival of Israel. And they feel as though that survival of Israel, which they see, this is based on various letters and public statements, you can say they see it as an existential threat that Israel is enduring right now. They also see the media on campus, on many college campuses, as having completely passed over the Hamas attack on its way to Palestinian rights. And so what are they doing? They're pulling their support. They're pulling their money from a lot of these universities. And even in Hollywood, I saw that the co-head of film at CAA, the huge talent agency, resigned. She made a controversial social media post, and she stepped away from day-to-day leadership. She was a big deal. Like, she had CAA huge. She has a big star list, like Tom Cruise, Natalie Portman, think like that. Mm-hmm. So when she steps down, it's a big deal. Apparently, she'll still work with clients. She has Anne Hathaway, Reese Witherspoon. They mentioned Olivia Wilde. She says, I made a mistake with a repost in my Instagram story which used hurtful language. Like so many of us, I have been reeling with heartbreak. I pride myself on being on the side of humanity and peace. I'm so grateful to Jewish friends and colleagues who pointed out the implications and further educated me. I immediately took the repost down. I don't see what her original post was, but I thought I'd seen it before. Oh, here it is. She reposted on Instagram this. You're currently learning who supports genocide. So, you know, the blowback is real, I guess. I just was surprised to see it extend even into
real, but she should have known better. I mean, you don't talk about genocide to a group of people who've been like, I don't know, if you go back in history, I'm sure there are many incidents of genocide, but in the most recent that I can think of and the most egregious has been against the Jewish people. So you don't say that. I how do you not know not to say that? And I don't think you can compare the two things. But then now that I've said that, I will get an email from someone who says, how could you say that? Look what they're doing to the Palestinian people. They have no food. They have no power. They have no, health care. They're in the dark. They have no way out there. And so, and so back and forth it goes. But it's almost better just to say nothing at all. And then if you say nothing at all, then what does that say about you? That you're not feeling, that you don't feel that there's, that you don't mourn the loss of life there, that you're not affected by it? It's hard. This is a rough one.
Yeah, Thomas Friedman, who I'm not a fan of on all things. I'll give you one example. Iraq. Guy was I think he was a saber rattler for Iraq and a rah-rah dude. But I got to give the devil his due here. Now, he's clearly a very smart guy. But here, he is suggesting in a piece in the New York Times, an op-ed piece, that he cautions the mistakes of Iraq. So he's begun to, I think, see the light on this. He says, I have great admiration for how President Biden has used his empathy and physical presence in Israel to convince Israelis that they are not alone in their war against the barbaric Hamas, while trying to reach out to moderate Palestinians. Biden, I know, tried really hard to get Israeli leaders to pause in their rage and think 3 steps ahead, not only about how to get into Gaza to take down Hamas, but also about how to get out and how to do it with the fewest civilian casualties possible. So, this is what we were talking about a minute ago. While the president expressed deep understanding of Israel's moral and strategic dilemma, he pleaded with Israeli military and political leaders to learn from America's rush to war after September 11th, which took our troops deep into the dead ends and dark alleys of unfamiliar cities and towns in Iraq and Afghanistan. Anyway, I'll just skip ahead. I believe if Israel rushes headlong into Gaza now to destroy Hamas and does so without expressing a clear commitment to seek a 2-state solution with the Palestinian Authority and end Jewish settlements deep in the West Bank, it'll be making a grave mistake that will be devastating for Israeli interests and American interests. It could trigger a global conflagration and explode the entire pro-American alliance structure that the United States has built in the region since Henry Kissinger engineered the end of the Yom Kippur War in 1973. I'm talking about the Camp David Peace Treaty, the Oslo Peace Accords, the Abraham Accords, and the possible normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The whole thing could go up in flames, he says. This is not about whether Israel has the right to retaliate against Hamas for the savage barbarism it inflicted on Israeli men, women, babies, and grandparents. It surely does. This is about doing it the right way, the way that does not play into the hands of Hamas, Iran, and Russia. And he goes on, talks about if you go in, essentially he was saying kind of what I was suggesting, which is if you go in, you're in for months and you make any 2-state solution with more moderate Palestinian administrative authorities impossible, because there's just going to be so much carnage and it's just going to. So I don't know what happens here. He says, I understand why this would all happen, but friends don't let friends drive while enraged. Biden has to tell this Israeli government that taking over Gaza without pairing it with a totally new approach to settlements, the West Bank and a two-state solution would be a disaster for Israel and a disaster for America. It's Tom Friedman in the Times. I think he's right about that. As I say, I'm not always a fan of everything he does, but I love that. Tony, I've got a huge Law and Disorder, but I've got Courtney coming up. I still haven't gotten to the Trump stuff. Are we going to get to that at 11? I mean, at 12 at the second hour?
I mean, where else can it go as of right now?
Thanks, Tony.
We're at a point, we already crossed the threshold. So
yeah, well, we're right. I've got another minute or two. Should I run the Liz Cheney stuff, Kim? What do you think right now before I go to you? Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
This is Liz Cheney over the weekend on Face the Nation. For first play, I have two cuts. First play, just because we're talking about the Middle East, play the longer cut, the Face the Nation cut, if you would, please, Tony. Okay? I think that will touch on some of what we're speaking about, and then we'll hear the other one. Go ahead. This is Liz Cheney on Face.
When will you make a decision about whether you want to run for president of the United States?
Well, what I am doing right now, what I will continue to do, is very much focus on making sure that we get people elected at all levels who are serious, people who believe in the Constitution. I think we're at a moment in this nation where we certainly have seen we face significant threats internationally. We've got Iran, Russia, North Korea, China arrayed against us. This is a threat atmosphere that we have not seen certainly since the end of World War II.
Bob Gates said ever.
Right.
But also said there's no presidential alternative in terms of affirmative vision for America's role in the world. Have you heard any candidates for president offer that vision?
I think that certainly you have seen some. I think that it needs to be a much louder, we need a much louder voices within both parties. Within my own party, I don't even know if I should call it my own party, within the Republican Party right now, the extent to which you're seeing people suggest that we should abandon Ukraine, which essentially is surrendering in this battle between freedom and tyranny, and that would be very dangerous for our security.
As you know, this massive national security package can't pass until there's a Speaker of the House.
Correct.
Last month, you said Congressman Patrick McHenry would make a great Speaker of the House, or it was earlier in October in his speech. He says he's not looking for a job. What is the vision for it? Is there anyone who can lead? Is he an alternative?
Look, I think what you're seeing right now among the Republicans in the House is a direct result of the decisions that Kevin McCarthy made to embrace Donald Trump, to embrace the most radical and extreme members of our party, to elevate them. So it's not a surprise that we are where we are, but it's a disgrace and it's an embarrassment. And there certainly are serious people among the Republicans. I hope that one of them, particularly, I think it's important somebody not be an election denier. And I also think everybody should be asked tomorrow night at the candidate forum about this issue of Ukraine assistance. And they should be asked from the perspective of, we face a global challenge, an existential threat, and how in the world could anybody defend at this moment surrendering to one of our adversaries by walking away from Ukraine?
What do you think is driving the domestic threats against lawmakers within the Republican Party and also among some Democrats?
Yeah, three guesses.
Domestic threats are absolutely being driven by Donald Trump and unfortunately some of his supporters who, in fact, have encouraged and taken steps that have resulted in, as we saw on January 6th, political violence. When you have a member of Congress, reportedly, like Warren Davidson from Ohio, who in the meeting with Jim Jordan last week, when some of the holdouts raised with Jordan the fact that they were getting death threats, one of them told me that in response, Congressman Davidson said, well, that's not Jim Jordan's fault, that's your fault for voting against him. That is the kind of encouragement and acceptance of violence that is absolutely has no place in this party, should have no place in our country. It is.
Who would guess that? Thank you. Who would guess that the Republican Party would somehow get to the point where Liz Cheney seems like the most appealing? Well, she makes sense. She makes sense. I'll remind you, Liz Cheney, for many of you who value women's right to choose, who didn't like Donald Trump, she's not going to line up with you in a way that would make a long car drive where you're talking politics at all tolerable. She voted for Trump twice, I'll remind you, okay? But having said that, I don't want you to think I'm rah-rah Liz Cheney, because I know some of you are, because she seems like the coolest head in the House. But the reality is she's right? She's right about certain things. And, of course, prior to that in the interview, she talks about on the Middle East thing, standing with Israel, because that's a big part of the right-wing position on the Middle East. But taking that all into account, this is a very tricky time, a very fragile time in the Middle East and politically here. And we are at a loggerjam, I think, in this country. We'll talk more about that in the second hour. Smash the like button if you would, please. A quick thumbs up would really help us. A quick thumbs up. Yeah.
With your iron rod.
Smash with your iron rod or whatever you've got handy. Courtney joins us with another mystery. But first, Kim's news. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Israeli fighter jets are stepping up attacks on Gaza as the war with Hamas enters its third week. Here's a picture of an Israeli fighter jet for you. That is what's happening in the Middle East as the White House is asking Israel hold back on a ground invasion as it pushes for the release of hostages being held by the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Meanwhile, the United States is reportedly hardening its defenses in the region as there are fears the conflict could spread into Lebanon or even Iran. Michael Cohen is issuing a warning to former President Trump before testifying against him today. Cohen, of course, Trump's longtime attorney and fixer, is expected to testify against the former president today in the civil trial in New York, centering on business fraud. Cohen warning Trump he will continue to speak out against him, even if doing so is exhausting. In a series of posts made on Monday, Cohen said, "I will continue to speak truth to power, no matter Donald's continued smear and harassment campaign against me." He said, standing up to Trump is exhausting to do so, and that Donald knows it. He said it's all about accountability. No one is above the law. And then he wrote, Team Cohen. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me that way.
Wow.
Well, that's the way it is.
He's on Team Cohen.
Ta-ta.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to testify?
He's going to testify, and what he has to say will be interesting. Although he's been on all the news shows, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise.
Well, I mean, his book is great. I only read the first book, but he was really the henchman for Trump, and he feels like every third page he's apologizing for his association with Donald Trump, Michael Cohen. But you're right.
When you're
now
the henchman, you know where all the bodies are buried. So, bring on the testimony. Nearly 270,000 undocumented immigrants were caught crossing the southern border in September. It's the highest single month ever recorded for that. The vast majority of the arrests happened between the ports of entry, mixed in with mostly Central Americans, 18 people whose names popped up on the terror watch list. Texas Senator Ted Cruz wants to attach some strings to the federal aid that public schools get for broadband access. In order to qualify for the cash, schools would have to block access to social media platforms. His bill would also set rules limiting how much screen time students are assigned as part of their schoolwork. Some striking union members are calling on UAW President Shawn Fain to accept the same $500 paycheck they're receiving to show solidarity during the walkout. The union says Fain will continue to be paid his full salary, estimated to be above $200,000. The UAW expanded its strike against the big three automakers today to include a major Stellantis plant in Detroit. In Maryland, the manhunt continues for a suspect accused of gunning down a judge. Washington County Sheriff Brian Albert, again, this is in Maryland, is urging the public to remain vigilant after locating Pedro Argote's car Friday night about 8 miles away from the crime scene. Judge Andrew Wilkinson, who presided over Argote's divorce case, was shot and killed in his own driveway on Thursday night. There's a cyber attack, pretty big one, underway in a major Southern California prosecutor's office right now. The Orange County District Attorney's Office revealing today some of its systems were shut down Friday. It's not clear why DA Todd Spitzer waited until today to notify the public. His office is now using Gmail accounts, not the normal county email system. A press release says they are isolating their network communications. It also says they're trying to keep Orange County's criminal justice systems functioning. The DA's office working with federal investigators and a third-party expert to investigate this hack or attack.
That's scary.
Yeah, I know. If you have to use Gmail instead of the Orange County, prosecutor's email,
all right,
you gotta isolate the whole system and wipe it clean.
Yeah,
that's not fake. That's real.
All right.
The Minnesota Vikings are hosting the San Francisco 49ers in Monday Night Football.
Oh my God, Kim, I can't wait.
It's going to be a big night in the Thompson house. The Vikings improved to 2-4 after beating the Chicago Bears last Sunday. The 49ers are 5-1 on the season after a surprise loss to the Cleveland Browns. So Monday Night Football with the Niners.
Yeah.
Talks between SAG-AFTRA and Hollywood Studios set to restart tomorrow, nearly 2 weeks after management halted discussions. Saturday, a joint statement from the Actors Union and the studio said they are willing to return to the bargaining table. The news came a day after SAG-AFTRA thanked union members for their unwavering solidarity over the last 100 days.
You think we should get somebody on here? Would you like somebody on here from that world to talk about that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay, I'll try to get that organized for this week.
Yeah, I'd like that. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards, and they have events that fill up really fast during this fall. They are the I Love Lucy Grape Stomps.
Yeah.
Really fun. It's a catered luncheon. You stomp the grapes, you get your feet all squishy in the grapes.
It's the best.
It's fantastic.
Smells so good. Oh, Lord.
You have a little pippity pop, and you get right in there and start stomping.
It was great. I love
pop
it.
and a squishity squash.
Yeah.
And then you squash the grapes, and then you hop out of the barrel, and then you go and eat a really nice catered lunch and have some wine.
Yes.
Real fun. You get 10% off. Why? Because you're a Mark Thompson Show listener, viewer.
Yeah,
and
you
it is an
are.
exclusive deal just for you. 10% off at Tenuta Winery. If you haven't tried the Why Are You Yelling Red, I'm telling you. TenutaVineyards.com. It's I'll give you the email address. It's Rich at TenutaVineyard singular.com, or you can call 925-699-4576. You can buy some wine, you can sign up for the grape stomp. All you have to do to get your 10% off is say smash
it with your iron rod.
Yeah,
with
you
your
have to give them
iron
the smash
rod.
with your iron rod. It's the phrase that pays.
That's the phrase that pays. So call, give it some oomph and feeling, and tell them that.
Thompson, party of four.
Yeah, can they get 4 people in that big vat of grapes?
I think you can. You could totally fit a party of 4 in there. Should we go out and do it?
Courtney, maybe you would like to come grape stomp with us.
Absolutely.
All right.
Definitely.
I mean, let's make some wine, people. Let's get it done.
There's
Get
a
it going.
reason that this place is fun.
Yeah, I think it would be fun.
Our thanks to Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Oh, it's overwhelming. Thank you very much. I just don't even know what to say. It's such a surprise. Thank you for being here, everybody. We are a crowd-funded show, so we're here because our community of supporters allows us to be here. So if you are interested in being part of that community of supporters, you can find us on Patreon and PayPal. Both of them, there can be hot links to both. And there are hot links to both at themarkthompsonshow.com. So it's easy, themarkthompsonshow.com. You have to put themarkthompsonshow.com. If you do not, if you just put markthompsonshow.com, you end up at is a religious, is that what he is? A ventriloquist? He's a religious ventriloquist? What is it?
It's a Christian ventriloquist.
Christian ventriloquist. That's good. Yeah.
Wow, that's niche.
That is very, that's very that genre is so specific.
You know?
But
I think
oddly,
you could put like he's the only, and it would be fine.
yeah. But if you want to find us, you put the themarkthompsonshow.com.
You'll know right away. It's not the right Mark Thompson. It's
Yeah,
very
you go.
obvious. Yeah.
But on that site, you'll find hot links to Patreon and PayPal, and you can join our crew, and that would be really cool. On Mondays, when she's available, we like to bring Courtney into the mix, my other half, and she does it in a segment we call Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's
Red Rum.
Murder
Red Rum.
Mystery
Red Rum.
Monday.
Courtney lives in that world of investigation.
I do.
DNA analysis.
Yes. Forensic.
Motive. What's the motive? She loves that stuff.
I do, and it's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah, I missed something happened, right? Like an anniversary or something.
We had our 1 year anniversary, Courtney, and you weren't here to celebrate it.
I was here in spirit.
Yeah.
I was here in spirit.
Well, yeah.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
I'm just saying. A lot of people were not happy about it.
I was here in spirit, but you were generous because I had an event on that same night. And so,
Yeah, you had a big event.
It's very nice
So,
you
yeah.
came to my event.
Tony has 11 jobs. He was there.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, so I'm
Oh,
just
wow.
yeah.
Okay,
I
got
mean,
it.
I made you cry.
Yeah. Yes. Tony put together if you haven't seen it, a reel.
I haven't seen it.
It's like a retrospective reel. How dare you? A retrospective reel, and that is moving. I was moved to tears.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it.
Hey, by the way, and then I want to start.
Is it just 3 minutes of drops?
I would love a reel that's just 3 minutes of drops, but it's not. There are no drops on the reel.
Sweet, I'm gonna watch it.
I was going to ask you with the Schwarzenegger and Morgan Freeman. Did you break them out separately? Remember we talked about that last week? I don't know.
They've been here since last week. They're right there. I can see
because I asked Albert. He said no, I don't have them. So okay.
Right there.
Anyway, there you go.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, all right. Mark, I don't have them, man. Don't have them. All right.
It's good to see things are staying the same in the new year.
Yeah, the new year is exactly the same. All right. Courtney, let's put it all to the side.
Okay. We're here to talk about a murder.
We are indeed.
Yeah.
So what have you chosen to share with us today?
I chose Suzanne.
Because first of all, I'm seeing, excuse me for interrupting,
Okay.
but I see the Vandersloot thing. People are referencing various things. So for you, even though you haven't been on, this has been an eventful couple of weeks.
I mean, it's not been by choice, but yes, Joran Vandersloot admitted last week to murdering the victim,
Is it Natalie
Holloway. In Aruba, which we talked about, I think, the last time that I was on.
Yeah, you have reviewed it.
So he was extradited to the U.S. He was extradited actually for wire fraud and for blackmailing her parents.
He made a deal, right, where he admitted to...
He said he would tell them where the body was for $250,000. He wanted a down payment of $25,000, and then he reneged on all of that. And so he was extradited to the U.S. For that, but then admitted to horribly murdering Natalie Holloway.
Pretty awful thing. So let's now segue to whatever today's mystery is, please. What is that today?
Yes, and somewhat in the just thinking about new news, ongoing news, I'm covering a case where there is new information after 3 years of this woman being missing, and her name is Suzanne Morphew. Wow. And I don't know if people are familiar with the case. This is out of Colorado.
That cute lady is missing?
She's dead now, but she was missing up until September 22nd of this year. It was presumed she was dead, but they in fact found her body on September 22nd. And what's really interesting is that they were searching for another body in the same area of a woman who was missing, and then found Suzanne. Yeah,
Suzanne Morphew. I see her name in the upper left. All right, so tell us about this.
So she was last seen on May 10th 2020, middle of COVID. It's Mother's Day. And she goes missing she was last seen on May 9th. But she's officially considered missing on May 10th. And so her remains, as I mentioned, were found about 40 minutes from her home this year on September 22nd. So if you go to the next, for people viewing, you can follow sort of these photographs. But if you go to the next slide, Tony. So she's married to Barry Morphew. They actually met, I think it was in high school. So she was prom queen. He was a star baseball player. He was actually drafted to the Toronto Blue Jays. And they married in 1994. He ends up having an injury, so he starts a landscaping business. And they were living out of state in Colorado, but one of their daughters decided to go to college in Colorado, so they moved to Colorado. So they had been to Colorado. They had lived in Colorado for not very much time when this all occurred.
It looks like every great Instagram picture that I've ever liked. You know what I mean? They look fine. You're telling me that guy killed her? I'm guessing. I mean, if she went missing and she's dead, I'm guessing the husband did it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
She's
evidence,
having okay, go ahead, keep going. But I'm just by picture alone.
Yeah,
they look great.
Yeah. You see a very typical 90s wedding on the left.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
And then you see a relatively happy couple that actually hates each other on the right.
Well, they look happy, honey.
They look happy.
They look happy, and they both are very attractive people.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
So if you go to the next slide. This is the family. This is Macy and Mallory. Mm-hmm. And so they were very close. The girls were very close to their mother. But on the weekend of Mother's Day, which was May 10th, 2020, May 9th, the two daughters had gone camping. So they were away for the weekend, and Suzanne was alone with Barry. And Barry has a landscaping business, so he's gone all day on May 9th. And Suzanne is out and about on May 9th and begins to text with a man that they find to be her lover.
Oh!
Yes.
So she's running around, is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She, apparently they knew each other from
Sure
college
they did. Somewhere before.
Some other time.
Wow.
But it was interesting. They were messaging on like all these social apps like LinkedIn.
Wow.
WhatsApp.
So it was like, and it could be seen by others, you're saying?
Yeah.
Or discovered
they
by
were
others.
messaging in places they were hoping not to be discovered.
Right.
They messaged 59 times on May 9th.
Wow.
How long do you think it would take for us to reach 59 text messages between one another?
We have a lot. We text all the time, I think.
Do you think? I feel like it would take us months.
No, that's your perception. But you send me, 11 texts a day, and I send you back a handful also.
Over the course of several weeks.
No. All right.
If we go to the next slide. So immediately after she's missing, the police are called by a neighbor because Barry, who's out of town now on May 10th, he asked the neighbor, have you seen or heard at all from Suzanne? The neighbor hasn't, so the neighbor calls the police. It's thought that Suzanne had gone bike riding because Barry tells police, as the neighbor's calling them, I don't know what happened. I had a great day with her on May 9th, a Saturday. We had dinner. We had a romantic evening. I left in the morning. She was still asleep on May 10th. She must have gone for a bike ride. So the police go, they start searching the area, and they find her bike. But what's really interesting is that her Camelback water and her food and some other things she would need to bike ride, her sunglasses, they're all still in her car.
No.
So it's really thought that
It's
her helmet and her bike are just kind of strewn around where she could have gone missing. Exactly. So if you go to the next slide, what's really interesting is...
That's a pen, it looks like.
This is a spy pen. Do you remember when we went to the spy store?
I love these things. I wanted to buy a bunch of stuff at the spy store.
Yeah.
And Courtney kind of waved me off it smartly because I would have no use for it. But at the time, I thought, this is great. I'm going to have a bunch of spy stuff.
Yeah, he's just going to spy on himself.
It's such a guy thing. I'm such a moron. Anyway, so this is a spy camera that's in that pen?
It's a recorder. I don't know if it had a camera. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but I do know it was
voice-activated recorder inside the pen.
So Suzanne buys this to try to catch Barry in an affair, which he is having, by the way. But I think it's a little less frequent than the affair Suzanne is having. But inadvertently, Suzanne ends up recording herself talking to her lover, this gentleman named Jeff, who I mentioned earlier. If you go to the next slide, if you go down, this is the last selfie or proof of life, as they say, of Suzanne that she sent to her lover on that May 9th. Jeff was someone, as I mentioned, that she knew earlier. He had 6 kids and a wife in a different state, but he had an alibi, so he was quickly dismissed as being a suspect. Yeah. So if we go to the next slide. So the police searched the home. They're using phone data and vehicle forensics to figure out the movement around the house. One of the first things they notice is that in the primary bedroom, there's this giant crack in the door, as you can see. And that crack, they confirmed with the original owners or the owners prior to the Morphews, was not there before. Now, Barry is a outdoorsman and hunter. I know your favorite. So what the thought is that he used a tranquilizer gun to tranquilize Suzanne before he ended up murdering her. And that struggle is left here in part with this large crack in the primary bedroom.
Wow.
Yes.
So the large crack, just to be clear, was that because he forced his way into the entry? Probably, right?
Probably there's a struggle. He had scratches all over him, and he had this gun. And so he says, oh, well, I'm a landscaper, and that's why I have scratches, and I'm a hunter, and that's why I have a tranquilizer gun. I mean, this is just like an everyday Sunday, apparently, for this guy.
Oh my God. Yeah, I just think it's a very questionable. Right.
So if you go to the next slide, this is the home. Now, these are all the pings of the cell phone.
It's a huge home.
Yeah. He sold it for he put it on the market for $1.75 million 10 months after her death. But as you can imagine, as a very innocent person would, he started selling off all the property and assets they had immediately after she was gone, before her body was found. And this house was included in that. He said he was shooting chipmunks. That's why he was running around like this. But the police believe that he was chasing her with this tranquilizer gun.
Wow.
And if you go to the next couple of slides.
But she didn't call 911 or any of this stuff during her...
She didn't. I think
she may not have had the phone handy. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
so this is where they found a cap for one of the needles for the tranquilizing gun, and the next slide is another larger photo of that, and then the next slide is the actual tranquilizer gun.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've got this guy, right?
Yeah. You would think.
What? This guy skates? Keep going. Tell me how this guy gets...
I'll try to wrap this up, but like he ends up on May 10th. He ends up going to a job site, which is 3 hours away. And if you go to the next slide, I'll skip through this. If you go through to the next slide.
Hang on a second. We'll go back to that. What was that text message? I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly. That was sent on...
This was sent right before the murders from Suzanne to Barry. And some of the other text messages were sent in March of that year. She died in May. Talking about how it wasn't working. He was shady. She did not feel comfortable being alone with him. So she was sending these types of text messages to her friends and also to Barry. So the thought is that she was trying to divorce him. He was begging for her not to. From what I can tell, there was no specific data around or evidence around unlawful activity regarding finances and stuff that she mentions in here. But she does talk about physical and mental abuse.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you go to the picture of his truck, they use vehicle forensics. He said he went to bed at 8 o'clock on May 9th, as you would on a romantic night with your wife.
Wow.
But his truck was backing up toward the house at 9:30. So someone's not being truthful. And then he said that he left for this job on May 10th. which we've talked about, which is 3 hours away. He said he left at about 4 in the morning, but the truck again is doing movements in the driveway at 3:30. So something's up. He drives 3 hours to a work site, in quotes. He gets a room at the Holiday Inn.
Well, to be fair, it is a work site. He has work to do getting rid of that body. Or has he already gotten rid of it probably at this point?
I don't know, because the body's not near the work site, but here's what I can tell you. He arrives at the Holiday Inn near the work site with shovels and white trash bags. Now, I'm going to say that if you plan on potentially harming your spouse, being a landscaper is a very easy way to get away with having lime and shovels and other things that you would use.
He's got lime, shovels, things that you would
bury a body with. But
there
this
he
is him
This is
walking.
Security. This is security in the motel or hotel.
Yeah,
Holiday Inn.
That sounds like a song.
Yeah, hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. Yeah, right.
He has 5 large white trash bags, and he throws them out at different receptacles throughout the city. And
one does.
He says, like, oh, well, I don't want to pay the fee of putting it in a landfill. One of the places he throws away this incriminating evidence is the men's warehouse, which I think is a very bold choice.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that's not the first time that's happened. But
all right.
Me surmising. So this is some security footage of him throwing away some of the
it's thought to be pieces of the body or maybe
other her body's found, so other evidence. Okay. So this is all happening on May 10th, 2020. This is him with his shovels walking seamlessly, innocently inside of the Holiday Inn. So if you go to the next slide. He's arrested.
Sir, would you like some help up to your room with you and your shovels?
Exactly.
He literally stepped into the lobby of the Holiday Inn. Those of you who are just listening and can't see it. And he's carrying all of these shovels with him. Anyway, go ahead. Yes, he was called in for questioning.
By the way,
he was arrested.
It might not be the first time someone's done that day at the Holiday Inn. Like it could have been a repeating.
It's a go-to spot for that. So Barry Morphew is arrested and jailed May 5th, 2021.
Yes, so he's arrested about a year later. And what happens is, if you go to the next slide, there was evidence found inside of Suzanne's car, which is, if you are watching, you can see it here. There was evidence found of an unknown male, but an unknown male who was also part of 2 other sexual assaults in different areas.
Wow.
And this was found pretty soon or recently, like after she went missing. This was found relatively soon after that.
And that's not Barry's DNA.
And that's not Barry's DNA.
Wow.
And the prosecution did not talk about this evidence in any of the pretrial stuff. So they didn't give it to the defense. And so the judge basically said...
Threw the case out.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
They can still retry him, but yes, because they didn't bring forth the evidence, basically.
Barry Morphew walks free today, you're saying, because of this DNA twist.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, effectively what the judge said is, he said, you cannot have 11 of your 16 criminal experts. And so the prosecution had to delay, or had to,
So
not
he
pursue
will likely still
case.
be
He
tried.
will soon likely, be tried. If you go to the next slide, it'll show some of the maps of where her body was found. So that all happened in May of 2021. And now the body was found just last month. So here's a
near Moffat
area,
Oh, wow.
where the body was found. What's interesting, again, as I mentioned earlier, is that her body was found in an area where another woman was missing. So not to say that this in any way makes Barry not a suspect,
right?
But it is interesting that her body was found where they were looking for the body of a person.
Just wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we shall see what happens. Yeah. I hope that justice is served. It's really sad.
In your judgment, he's clearly responsible for her death, right?
Oh yeah. No.
Well, how do you explain the DNA that doesn't match his DNA, and that's also been
I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
it's weird. I mean, it could belong to anybody, of course. Anybody who's in that truck.
I don't know. Maybe, it could have been. I have no idea. I don't know. It could have been. I don't know. I get into like these conspiracy theories of maybe someone planted it, but I don't know. Maybe someone was in the car. She didn't really know them. They had a really horrible past, but
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
No, I don't think that there's any evidence of that. But thank you, Detective. Courtney, this has been a very impressive and might I say dramatic with twists and turns.
Yes, dramatic
iteration of Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. I think you've acquitted yourself so beautifully.
Apparently, Barry would sit in his car and watch episodes of Forensics Files, which I would also say probably not the best thing to do right before you kill your spouse. It's probably, you know what I mean?
I would suggest that,
Maybe you do the research a little bit farther ahead.
You don't.
Right. You don't get it.
But yeah, I do hope that justice is served, and I appreciate you saying that. I'm really happy to be back, and I really appreciate the people that reached out to me, Teresa and Parks, and Francine, and of course Calvin. I just
have
the
shadow producer Calvin Wong. Yeah, it's terrific. Hang around. We have one question for you, a relationship question in a moment. That's Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. Oh, did you have a question, Kim, before I...
No, I've really enjoyed this week's Mark Murder Mystery Monday with Courtney.
Thank you.
Can't get over the egregiousness of carrying shovels into the lobby of the Holiday Inn.
Well, it's certainly shameless. Egregiousness is a big word.
It's awful.
That's Mark's Murder Mystery Monday for today.
Yeah. Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes. Courtney, I was mentioning at the beginning of the program, because you are the love of my life.
Oh, thank you.
I was mentioning that I had the perfect weekend because Kim had asked about my weekend. And
because I wasn't here.
Get rid of this.
I was gone.
That's exactly what I said. I had a great weekend. She was doing her own thing. I'm at home, and I could just get baked on the couch and watch football and movies and TV shows.
The general sense is I would leave for the evening and come back, and Mark will not have moved.
It's true. I literally am in the same spot.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. If you give me the papers, stuff to read, and the movies and others, it's
and
perfect.
Other stuff.
Sporting events.
Liquor.
Liquor and edibles.
I mean,
but Lori feels that we shouldn't have to have that. I can't find her comment, but she was saying essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was she saying, Kim?
She was saying you should have two TVs so you would have relationship time. Like, you could watch football and Courtney could watch whatever she wants to watch and you could still be together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great idea.
Could the TVs be in other rooms?
Yeah. we don't want more time together. We have just enough time together. There it is. Oh my God, get two V's, have a but we do, because she watches her stuff. Like she's seen a bunch of really trashy reality stuff.
Right.
And all this murder mystery stuff, and listen to 5,000 podcasts. She does that all the time.
I take offense to trashy reality, Mark.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that's a very sweet idea, and I'm totally open to it as long as they're in two different sides of the house in different rooms.
See, we're both on board. Huge in Japan says, Mark, that's me, only with video games. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Courtney, great job, says Vicky in Sausalito. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you spiked the landing. You did it successfully.
Yeah, thank you. It was a long one, and I did leave out a lot, but I appreciate everyone sticking with me through that story. And I try to cover things that are happening, unfortunately, in real time. So
you do a fine job.
Thank
Courtney,
you.
everybody. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you very much.
All right.
See you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Yeah. Kim's news, and then I'll get into a law and disorder that does include the former President Trump. Also, a major sports team owner is in law and disorder. I've got an apology in Law and Disorder, not from me, but from a major player in something that happened in the Bay Area. And then I have in Law and Disorder a caper, a plan to make a big heist. So all that stuff awaits you in Law.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I'll tell you whether or not it does work as we continue. Smash the like button like a boss if you would.
Smash it with your iron rod.
So Law and Disorder awaits you. We'll talk about the Sidney Powell flip as well. All of that still to come. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report's sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. 2 more hostages have been released by the Palestinian militant group Hamas. According to multiple reports, Hamas said it released the hostages today on humanitarian grounds. The hostages have been identified as 2 Israeli women. Their release follows the release of 2 American hostages on Friday. Israeli officials report Hamas is holding more than 200 people hostage as fighting between the two sides continues. President Biden and former President Trump are tied at 37% each in a hypothetical presidential race. The Suffolk University USA Today poll surveys 1,000 voters in a 4-way race between the 2 and independent candidates Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Cornel West. The poll showed 366 votes for Biden, 365 for Trump, Kennedy 13% of the vote, West 4. At least 9 Republicans are now running to be the next Speaker of the House. Kind of a crowded field we have now. Majority Whip Tom Emmer of Minnesota officially jumped into the race over the weekend, got the endorsement of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Emmer is the highest-ranking Republican on the list of candidates. Representatives Kevin Hern of Oklahoma, Pete Sessions of Texas, and Byron Donalds of Florida are also running for the top spot. This comes after Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan failed to become the Speaker following 3 votes on the House floor last week. The Republican conference will meet this evening to hear from the candidates. Detroit police are reiterating that the stabbing death of the president of a local synagogue was not linked to anti-Semitism. Police Chief James White said they're still searching for a suspect. Samantha Wall, W-O-L-L, Wall, was found stabbed multiple times on the sidewalk Saturday morning right near her residence. Wall was president of the Isaac Agree downtown Detroit synagogue and a former staffer for 2 Democratic Michigan politicians. Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan says he's devastated by this attack. Police say there is no evidence to suggest that this was linked to anti-Semitism. The investigation there continues.
Yeah, I thought the FBI is now moving in, and if that's what you said, that investigation as to whether or not it's a hate crime or anti-Semitism is involved kind of continues. I get the idea Detroit cops say, no evidence of anti-Semitism, but come on, dude. I mean, it seems, I don't know, little too rando for me. But anyway, the FBI's been called in, so they'll figure it out or help figure it out, hopefully.
We need to call Courtney on this one, I think.
Yeah. It's pretty awful.
Yeah, it is awful. And I don't mean to make light of it. It's really horrible, but we don't know why she was stabbed. But we do know she was stabbed right near her residence, and that we've seen other incidents in the recent weeks of people being attacked connected to feelings about the war in the Middle East. Visa is announcing the pilot launch of its AR Manager virtual card. This virtual payment service will be available on a limited basis in November. Businesses have rapidly turned to virtual cards as the preferred method for processing accounts payable. And Google is being investigated by Japan's competition watchdog. The probe alleges the antitrust law violations regarding its search practices on mobile platforms. Investigators want to know if agreements were made with Android smartphone makers to prioritize Google apps and services. A question proposed on the internet asks people if they would rather have lunch with rap mogul Jay-Z or get $500,000. Would you rather?
Huh.
The rapper advises you take the money. CBS News' Gayle King asked him the question in an interview, to which Jay-Z said, "Well, I wouldn't tell you to cut a bad deal." King noted the insight someone might receive from an afternoon with the rapper and entrepreneur might be worth $500,000, but he said his wisdom is in his music anyway. He said, "You got all that in the music for $10.99. Take the money."
It's all there. Where's the black and white?
It's all there,
That's it.
black
Thank
and
you.
white, clear as crystal.
Right.
And
It's all there
lastly,
with the lyrics of the music, baby.
we have so many drops in here, I could only have room for one picture. So this is the one I chose. It's a wax statue of The Rock.
Wow.
It is featured at the Musée Gravine.
Yeah, you are just woo, girl. You look good.
It's a museum in Paris, France, that specializes in wax figures of famous people. Do you see anything wrong with this of The Rock? Does it look like The Rock?
Well, it looks pretty great to me.
It's fantastic.
Okay, we seem
No.
to. I'm guessing. Let me guess.
No.
There is a problem with maybe the ink. It's different than what's actually on his arms.
No.
Hold on. I don't know. What is it?
Let me tell you a little something about The Rock. All right.
Okay.
His dad was a black Nova Scotian, and his mom is Samoan.
You okay?
He doesn't look very dark in that, does he?
Oh, you think they
That's
lightened
not his
him up?
color. He doesn't look like that.
Oh!
He is. You look at him, and he looks like a person of color. This looks like
Wow.
some white dude, and that was the criticism. And apparently, there are a lot of people posting on the internet, what is going on with this picture of The Rock that does not look like him at all. And
It's all there.
It's all there, black and white, clear
Again.
as crystal.
Yeah, it is black and white, as it turns out.
So The Rock says he's heard the complaints and he's going to do something about it. He said he's having his team, very important when you have your own team like Mark Thompson, reach out to our friends at the Grevin Museum in Paris so we can work on updating my wax figure with some important details and improvements, starting with my skin color.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. Well,
I stand corrected.
well, they're going to need to do better. They might, need to redo.
My bad. I'm sorry.
People say that he's been whitewashed. They don't want him whitewashed.
Oh, that's true. It
He
was
has a
wrong. It was stupid.
It was wrong. It was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Yeah, they
He
did
has
really
a
screw it
melanin
up.
deficiency. Yes,
Yeah.
no. You got
Yeah.
to correct that. So
Wow, there
is no defense for my conduct.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those mistakes, but definitely, you're right.
They got to fix that.
Now that you say it, now he looks blanquissimo.
He
really
looks
white.
Does he looks pasty? That's not The Rock.
Exactly. That's
No.
not the Rock.
This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the
Yes,
Asian American
well,
community.
he is, Asian community.
Well, we're not apologizing for the coffee because that's the best we've
No,
ever had.
the Coachella Valley
Nope.
coffee sustains me.
That's right.
It gives me energy. It
The
gives me
tea
clarity.
is an absolute treat. And once again, because you're a viewer and listener of the Mark Thompson Show, you're entitled to an exclusive 10% off deal. All you have to do when you go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, put it whatever you want in your cart, and then at the checkout, you put in Mark T all together. Mark T, you get your 10% off. You're good to go. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
I'm loving the new bean that I'm trying. Never tried it before. Just started in the last week. I'm doing the French press on the El Salvador bean. You can find it there on CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
You cracked that open, huh?
It's a medium roast. I like normally darker, rich, dark, mysterious roasts. But I like this. It's a medium roast, not a light roast, medium, and it's perfect for starting the day. And we're pouring it in the Thompson home. El Salvador is what it's called. So you may want to try it. But you should pick the bean that's right for you. As I've told you, it's all fresh cut, and they hand roast all the beans. I love Coachella Valley Coffee. Been drinking them just for the last few years. Best coffee I've ever tasted. And I've tasted them from all around the world. And you have to pick the bean that's right for you. But definitely get that 10% off. Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
the Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
What up, everybody? Thanks for being here. It is the beginning of a new week during troubled times. Great to have you all here. Try to give you a sense of what's happening in these times, as well as little diversions here and there. And smash the like button like a boss along the way.
Iron rod.
This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Let's see who's doing what, and let's see where they are. A federal judge sentencing to prison a former Florida state legislator who catapulted to national attention for being the sponsor of a bill barring classroom instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity. Remember, it was called the Don't Say Gay bill?
Yep.
He's former Representative Joe Harding, a Republican from Williston. He pleaded guilty, 1 count each, of wire fraud, money laundering, and making false statements, everyone. Yeah. That's the big three. It was all part of a scheme to fraudulently obtain $150,000 in federal COVID-19 relief. Sentenced to 4 months in prison, where he will not be able to say gay there. Apparently.
He doesn't look very happy. Oh,
yeah.
But he might be able to say it a lot.
Yeah, he can say it. It may come up as a thing. I don't know.
It might.
The former president, Donald Trump, is also in Law and Disorder because the law part of Donald Trump has to do with lawyers. And he is surrounded by many of them, as you know, much of the time.
Yeah.
Sidney Powell, the latest, who took a plea deal, and it's thought that she will now, because of this plea deal, the deal part of the plea deal is that she will speak about Donald Trump and the fact that he was really the architect behind a lot of the January 6th stuff. He is saying, Sidney Powell, she was never his attorney. Never
Wrong.
My attorney. Yeah.
No. You can try to back this truck up, but everybody knows. This is, come on.
Yeah. Well, he says, in fact, she would have been conflicted. Powell did. Powell, do you remember that Powell was actually considered by Trump to be a special prosecutor? He was going to make her a special prosecutor, special counsel, they call it often. That's what they have now in Jack Smith.
Yeah.
Special counsel to go after his political enemies, go after Democrats. So he was really mobbed up with Sidney Powell. Believe me, she was a 6. I would never have a lawyer on my staff who's only a 6. All my female lawyers are 8s or 9s.
And we knew that even after she left the employ of his campaign, he still kept in touch with her about everything election related.
Sure.
So she's someone he still trusted, but she was technically his lawyer at one point.
Trump touted Powell, Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, and 2 others as a truly great team. In November of 2020, he made that post. Added to our other wonderful lawyers and representatives. Working on the legal effort to defend, quote, our right to free and fair elections. On Truth Social, he says that Powell was one of millions and millions of people who thought, and in every increasing number still think, correctly, that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. So he's saying, yeah, she was in that effort to prove that but she wasn't part of my team. Yet, obviously, he said that she was part of the team. He's not happy because she, I think, will reveal a number of X's and O's associated with the former president's involvement in overturning the election. Now, I get it. To 30% of the people, it's not going to matter, but still, the facts are important.
If they let her take a plea deal and get basically a slap on the wrist for trying to defraud the American people, then what she has to say about Trump is going to be good. Really good, really interesting. Yeah. Although I would wonder if she's sane, like if she's right in the head.
Well, I think she's a crackpot, if that's what you mean. But
that's what I mean.
She's
like, how much do you trust whatever comes out of her mouth? Because
I mean, her defense for what she had said about the election was that it was so ludicrous, I didn't think anybody would actually believe it. I mean, that was her defense. So, I mean, is that the kind of... I don't think that's much high ground. But anyway, here's some January 6th news. A Florida porn star turned Proud Boy headed to prison for a leading role in the January 6th riot. He describes himself as an adult film actor and a Proud Boy. I mean, you can do them both. Yeah.
What are the porn stars doing?
Nice to have hobbies. I don't know if the hobby was the Proud Boy part or the hobby was the porn star part. But anyway, Stephen Miles is his name. He's 40 years old, just hitting his prime as a porn star. How sad. Pleaded guilty to assaulting, resisting, or impeding law enforcement officers during the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Miles and more than 2,000 other rioters, of course, stormed the Capitol to disrupt the Electoral College's vote count and overturn the results of the election. Miles lives in Zephyr Hills. Does anybody know where Zephyr Hills is?
North Dakota?
If you guessed Florida, give yourself points.
Okay.
It's a city a half an hour northwest of Tampa. He traveled to Washington, D.C. for the January 6th rally, but left before any speeches began, instead opting to rendezvous with other Proud Boys and play, quote, a leading role in the riot. Wearing a camo jacket and pants combination and a red Make America Great Again cap, Miles and his co-defendant Matthew LeBrun, 33, from New Orleans, entered this restricted perimeter of the Capitol building, undeterred by barricades and police and riot gear. Miles then shoved a Capitol police officer, attempted to punch another. A short time later, Miles used a wooden plank to smash a window and gain access inside of the Capitol. LeBrun, again, the guy from Louisiana who he went there with, and a cascade of rioters, quote, overwhelmed police and also took advantage of the smashed window to enter the building. Quote, in addition to attempting to assault the officer, Miles made additional physical contact with law enforcement officers. This is all in the court documents, so it sounds very kind of technical, seeking to obstruct, impede, and interfere with their efforts to hold back the rioters. He will be sentenced next month. More than 1,100 people across the country have been charged for crimes related to the Capitol riot, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and there are more being dragged in all the time as revelations come to pass. They have a hotline set up. So,
John Watson wants to know, what's his porn star name?
What is his porn star name? I don't know. You know what to do? It's not in...
Google it.
I'm not Googling it. I am not doing that. No.
John Watson, maybe it's your job to Google it and see Stephen Miles.
Don't do it.
Adult film actor.
Tony's doing it right now.
Don't get too lost in that porn world. You'll never come back.
He's not.
My God.
He says he won't.
A woman arrested for stealing $57,000 from an elderly man during a casino date in Vegas is now in custody.
I mean, if you have a casino date, what do you expect?
Haley McNally has been accused of stealing $57,000 in cash and casino chips. Wow. Met an older man online.
I'll take this chip. And
they hooked up in Las Vegas. She's 27 years old. And apparently, she faces charges of grand larceny. So it's kind of a big deal. That's right. She met McNally through an online dating site called Seeking. They agreed to spend 2 days together at Caesar's Palace. She's really cute. And she was almost rich. She almost got away with it.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Yeah.
How old is she and how old was the guy she went out with?
She is 27. The man who she was connected with was a very respectable, what does it say? I thought I'd seen it earlier, but maybe I want to say it was 50-something. But
yeah, he was in his 50s. So you see, that's what she thought. She probably just assumed that it was a sugar daddy situation. And so he was taking her out and she was kind of help herself.
I think in sugar daddy situations, and I have never been in one, but you never know. Could have a late inning sugar daddy rally. I'm open to it, yeah. But I think in those situations, it's usually the sugar daddies, you're being given money by the sugar daddy. You don't take it.
Well,
I think when you're taking the chips
thought
and cash,
it was a gift, like he had displayed them on the table, and she thought, well,
I never thought I'd get into this degree of specificity on this, but I will now fill this out with some details. He says that he met her through this online dating site called Seeking, and he says they agreed to spend 2 days together at Caesar's Palace, and he says that he is supposed to pay her $2,500. So that's the sugar daddy part. It's not $2,500 and whatever you can grab off the nightstand or in my pant pocket or whatever. So.
And she's thinking $2,500 and we're having a weekend.
You're right. $2,500, I'm in the door, brother. I'll tell you what, I'm in for a lot more than that.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's that story. And she is being charged. I want to finally give you, in Law and Disorder, this story of this caper. I also wanted to give you before the caper, let me just mention this. That gold digger girlfriend, since we're talking about these kinds of things, the grab and run. Gold digger girlfriend stealing almost $500,000 from Vegas Golden Knights NHL team minority owner. Yeah. Jennifer Courtmanche, 44, of California, facing theft and money laundering charges in the alleged transfer of about $500,000 from the phone of Gavin Maloof. You know Gavin Maloof. He's a part owner of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the professional hockey team playing out of Las Vegas. So she got onto his phone and tried to transfer that money to herself.
Doesn't she look like the hooker in the hotel room that takes the money out of your wallet?
It just might work.
That's not very nice of you to say. She's got a look to her, though. You know?
I would say that if we're casting, I agree, she is closer to what we want. But so as that goes on, finally, somebody came up with a jewelry heist that might have made sense.
Can I say something about Maloof? Because I think they own the Sacramento Kings.
That's right. At least they did. I don't know if they still do, but they might. Yeah.
No, they sold it in 2013. I think
they sold it, right.
Yeah.
I went to a Christmas party at the Maloof's house.
Oh,
and
what?
It was unreal. It was like, it was pretty crazy. I'll just tell you this in 30 seconds or less. They had a skating rink there on the property that they had set up with professional skaters doing the flying camel or whatever it's called. And they had all these celebrities there and stuff. And Joe Pesci was hitting on my girlfriend unrelentingly. I mean, and I was like, fine, I don't, go with Joe Pesci if you want to. But it was very funny. It was really a lot of fun. I miss the Maloof Christmas party. Yeah. A man posing as a mannequin has a plan to steal jewelry by doing it. He's a 22-year-old man in Warsaw. He posed motionless, carrying a shopping bag.
Is that him there in the window?
Yeah, he's in the window alongside mannequins.
In the
he's
tan
in that
shirt?
mustard-colored sweatshirt.
Yeah.
He's 22 years old. His arm outstretched held the shopping bag beside two real mannequins in jeans. And then once the store closed, the man leaped into action. stealing jewelry. Police said after the shopping center closed, he ate at one of the bars there in the shopping center.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
He changed into a new set of clothes, then escaped under the store's partly open gate. And then later he came back for seconds at that meal at the bar.
That's some cojones right there.
Yeah, it almost worked. It almost worked. He faces up to 10 years in prison. He was also accused of committing thefts and burglaries at another location, according to cops. And that is Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Let's do a news capsule, and then Karen Dawn is here. On Monday, we look at animal news from the world of critters. And she's so great with it. And we'll get to her after Kim's news. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Give us a thumbs up. Share any segment of the show, any video from the show, a short, a video, or just share a link to the live show, however you want to do it. If you share it across Facebook and other places, that's how we expand this audience, and that's how we stay alive. So thank you for all the ways you support us. Some of you are so great. Patreon and PayPal, and you give us, financial support every month. But some of you are so great with, with the outreach, with sharing something. Maybe it's Law and Disorder. We'll drop that as a separate video, whatever. We appreciate all of those things. So Kim's news and Karen Dawn next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. 2 more hostages released by the Palestinian militant group Hamas. According to multiple reports now, Hamas said it released the hostages today on humanitarian grounds. The hostages identified as 2 Israeli women, and it follows the release of 2 American hostages on Friday. And as we get more information about these folks, we'll bring it to you. The field of GOP candidates for next Speaker of the House includes at least 9 Republicans now, including Majority Whip Tom Emmer of Minnesota. He officially joined the race after picking up the endorsement of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Emmer is the highest-ranking Republican now among the list of candidates. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is dismissing concerns about his health. The 81-year-old Kentucky lawmaker says he's in good shape, back on the job. He said it during an interview on CBS's Face the Nation. McConnell said he is completely recovered from the health issues that led him to freeze on 2 different occasions while taking questions from reporters.
He didn't say what his health issues were, though. He just said, I'm all better.
I'm fine. As a matter of fact, he said,
I'm all better.
I don't think we should be talking about this. Let's talk about the issues again, is what he said.
Oh, right.
I don't want to talk to you anymore about this. A JetBlue plane is being taken out of service for inspection after it tipped backward onto its tail as passengers were getting off. On a weight-bearing issue there. It happened at New York's JFK airport yesterday. The plane had just landed from Barbados when video shows the nose lifting up. JetBlue says it appears to have been caused by a shift in weight as people were getting off and cargo was being unloaded.
Oh my God.
Nope. A new study confirms a link between body fat and reduced brain volume. What are you trying to say? Fat people are stupid? I don't know if I like this study. An international study of 10,000 people shows your diet and your lifestyle may actually affect how you think. Apparently, the more belly fat you have, the less brain volume and a higher risk for dementia later in life. Researchers at Providence St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California, say overactive and inflamed fat cells signal the brain to downsize.
Wow, that's
we only
wild.
have room for a certain amount of cells. If we have more cells in the fat, we just can't handle your brain. No.
Wow, that's crazy. That really is. I don't know about
the science is ridiculous.
Maybe it's definitely wild. I never would have thought. I mean, obviously, it's better to exercise and not carry around too much extra weight. But I just don't understand. I mean, the correlation between those two is pretty crazy. I think
they're going to need more study on that one. You need to do a little more research.
Well, I mean, the head researcher, Dr. Emil Schopenhauer,
Emil Schaffhausen.
I mean, he's working all the time on this stuff, so it'll be interesting to read that paper.
A week after posting the highest grossing debut weekend for a concert film, Taylor Swift now has the first concert film to stay at number 1 for 2 consecutive weekends. Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour, took in an estimated $31 million over the weekend to top the box office for the second straight week. The new Martin Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon,
how did that do?
With Leonardo DiCaprio, finished second with just under $24 million. But nothing. You can't top Taylor.
No,
Jada had nothing to do with it.
Jada's book is out, but that didn't impact box office numbers.
What's interesting is that Taylor Swift's movie, and she did this on purpose, she wanted it to be like a concert. And so she realized that she only really holds concerts Thursdays through Sundays. So she only wanted it on the weekends. So that means that, like most movies, you can't go see it on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So they're not sure how that's going to affect the overall numbers when compared to other movies, because people won't have as many days of the week where they can go see that movie.
Oh.
What?
Yeah.
No, I think I followed it.
Got to go see that on a hot Friday night. Are you saying that was confusing?
It was a little confusing at first, but I think I understand now.
Okay, well, it wasn't that important anyway. We'll move right along. This report is sponsored.
No, that's on me. It's not on you. I mean, believe me. I think you explained it fine. It's my inability to understand stuff.
It was probably me. I did. It's probably all my belly fat sucking my brain away. So this is how it happens. This is where it begins.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
You're right. Yeah, that's the way you should be.
This report is sponsored by you.
Yeah,
and it is, and that means we rely on you to support the Mark Thompson Show. You'll find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. If you'll check out the website, themarkthompsonshow.com, the Patreon, PayPal links are there, and more. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens.
Oh yes, thank you, Shadow.
This is the Mark Thompson Show.
Okay.
Keep it to yourself.
Thank you very much.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for smashing the like button. Thank you for sharing the show, all the stuff I always say, and we do appreciate it. On Mondays, we like to check in on the animal kingdom, and a lady who does this regularly with her newsletter, which is called Dawn Watch, visits us on Mondays. Karen Dawn, everybody. Hi, Karen.
Great to see you, Mark. So good to be here.
Yeah. And what's...
Greetings.
Yes.
I was going to say greetings from Austin. I'm back in Texas.
Austin, Texas, man. I'll tell you what, that's cool. Long necks and long horns, no place but Texas, baby.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Exactly. All right. So
I missed you guys last week.
Yeah, things have been getting pretty hot. We had to kind of do a lot of Middle East stuff last week, and I think it kind of squeezed things out.
Which I totally understand. And I hope you don't mind my addressing that. But when Kim got in touch and said, with everything going on in the Middle East, we can't look at animal stuff today. I totally understood, because believe me, for the last couple of weeks, I've been so focused on the Middle East stuff. And I know that's where everybody's focused. And so on the one hand, I completely understood. And on the other hand, of course, as somebody who's devoted my life to trying to give animals a voice, it hurts so much that as soon as humans start killing each other and doing these horrendous things to each other, then of course, even for people who really care about animal stuff like you and like me, animals go to the back burner. And that hurts. And it reminds me of a wonderful quote from Isaac Bashevis Singer, who I think you're probably familiar with this quote. He's a Nobel Prize.
He was a poet or he was a playwright, right?
Author.
Author,
Nobel Prize winning for literature. And he was himself a Holocaust survivor. And because if anybody else said this, they'd be in big trouble. But he was a Holocaust survivor. He was actually in one of the camps as a child. And he's known for saying that to animals, all people are Nazis. For animals, it is an eternal Treblinka. And that's just so true, that what animals face every single day is in many ways so much worse than what's been going on in Israel, Gaza, for the Palestinian people, for the Israelis. So it's hard to see that, to understand that has to go to the back burner, because humans are being well, you know how
yeah. I mean, humans see animals as things. It got into the street. It, et cetera. But as long as once you call something an it, you've dehumanized it, and that is part of what we've done to the animal kingdom. So, of course, you're right. But
I don't know if you know how beautifully you have just segued into something that I hadn't got in touch with you before, but I sent to Tony, and I hope he has it up there. But there's an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times today about the possibility of giving legal rights to elephants. And the reason we look at elephants, it's the thanks, Tony, the Non-Human Rights Project is behind this push. And Steve Wise, who heads up the Non-Human Rights Project, wrote a wonderful book called Drawing the Line. His first book was called Rattling the Cage Towards Legal Rights to Animals, and the second one was called Drawing the Line. And it talks about the fact that whereas I might argue that all animals should have some sort of rights, and the rights we're talking about is not the right to vote. They're the right to legal bodily integrity and bodily liberty and bodily integrity. And the reason that they're starting with elephants is because they're a kind of obvious place to start, because they're so blatantly intelligent. Their brains are bigger than ours. They have been proven to have a sense of self. When they are a sense of self, when they are looking in the mirror, they understand that they are looking at themselves in the mirror, and they've done experiments to show this. And so today in the Los Angeles Times, there's an article about an attempt to get elephants some legal rights in California. Ojai was the first city in California to actually pass that elephants have legal rights of the sort.
Yeah, from the op-ed, elephants are sensitive, intelligent beings who feel joy and sorrow, have meaningful projects and relationships, and often walk miles a day in the wild. As a result, they tend to suffer in captive environments like zoos. When their freedom is restricted, they have had an increased risk of developing joint disorders and damaged tusks. They also are more likely to experience boredom, depression, and aggression. That's just one small paragraph from what you're talking about, that piece.
Right. And what that piece also talks about is the fact that if they have legal rights, they are no longer its, they are no longer property. And that's the problem at the moment for animals, is that they're viewed as property. So when their owners' interests are at stake, that's when welfare laws won't work, because animals are basically property. And I find the argument really interesting. For me, I love that the Non-Human Rights Project is doing this with rights. I talk about myself as somebody who fights for animal liberation. And I don't really mind whether that comes from animal actual rights, legal rights, or if it comes from us accepting that whereas animal welfare is usually considered to be that we have a right to do whatever we want with animals as long as we treat them nicely while we do it. I'd be fine if we accepted animal welfare, but accepted that, of course, it is not in the welfare of any being to be enslaved, to be farmed and eaten. So I don't get too much into the rights versus welfare. I'm for liberation. I'm for animal liberation. I'm for them having as much freedom as is possible. And as I've mentioned a few times, I'm for a circle of life rather than a hierarchy of life, and which doesn't mean that we can absolutely never eat another animal, but it's when we get into farming and that sort of thing, then we're getting way outside of the circle of life. This is not
from this LA Times piece to which you pointed. The case is not the first of its kind. This one in California. The New York Court of Appeals recently considered a similar petition involving Happy, an elephant at the Bronx Zoo.
Yes.
The court granted a hearing on Happy's habeas claim, marking the first time that the highest court in an English-speaking jurisdiction allowed such a hearing for a non-human animal. The court, sadly, ultimately sided with the zoo, but,
there have been, and it's funny because in Happy's situation, that was a really complicated case, Mark, and I'm not sure that Happy would have been better being moved. That's my personal opinion. I'm just
right.
not
I mean,
sure.
the one thing among many things, but I mean, something that I really like about you is that you do take practical considerations into account as you talk about whales and you talk about elephants and you talk about situations that were wrongs that we would like to right, you know. But sometimes you can't right every wrong, and in so doing, you're actually doing more harm. And I think you're more aware of that than many in the movement.
Right. It's funny that you say that because I'm thinking of your earlier conversation today about Gaza and that there's no good choices. And with Happy's situation, she never should have been in the zoo. But once she's been there for her whole life, was it really going to be better to move her at the stage they were trying to move her at? I'm not sure. You know, and so that's why I think we do have to always take the individual into account.
Well, this is a great ongoing thing because, as you suggested, the it, you know, which is the animal, which is eaten, displayed, you know, taught tricks and turned into a sideshow, whatever. It's those creatures deserve dignity, and they deserve a certain recognition as sentient, because they are. You know, joy, sorrow, all those things. We know it from our dogs and cats. They experience fear, they experience happiness, they experience joy. I mean, these are all things that are demonstrably the case. Karen, love that you visit with us. Thank you for being here. Again, the Daily Animal World News Watch, Dawn Watch. You can find it on Facebook. Look for Karen Dawn on Facebook. You can follow all her stuff, and we look forward to your next visit. Thank you, Karen Dawn. There it is. Tony's got it going. Yeah. She's got a turkey.
Coming up.
That's coming up, the turkey rescue. Turkey. Yeah, we'll get to it next time. All right. Until then, thanks, Karen. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Did you see that there's an anchor in Los Angeles running for Senate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Former Kate, would you like me to get her on here, or is that just might it be interesting? Might be interesting. Anyway, here she is, and you can tell me whatever Kim wants is what I'll do. Or you in the chat, you can tell me whether you want me to book her here on the show. And
Kim, how are you?
All right. Her name is Christina Pascucci. She's running for U.S. Senate. I mean,
what?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that she wouldn't be great.
Do you know who she is? Do you know her?
I know her, sure. I do know her,
yeah. She worked at KTLA and she worked at Fox in Southern California.
Yeah, no, I do know her and know a lot of people she's worked with, and it'll be no problem to get her on the show, probably. I'll tell you what my issue is with it, and there is no, it's not specific to her, but you will, in a moment, let me just first tell you about her, and then I'll tell you why I think this is a bad idea. Former television reporter and anchor Christina Pascucci is looking to fill the seat of the late Senator Dianne Feinstein.
What?
Yeah. Pascucci spent more than a decade as a reporter and anchor at KTLA before moving to Fox 11, KTTV, as Kim mentioned. The 30-year-old Democrat, the 38-year-old, says that she aims to be a moderate consensus builder and vows to appeal to Latino and undecided voters. I've been covering the most pressing issues of California for the past 15 years, she says, and watching this race closely, as well as covering it and interviewing some of the candidates. And the more I watched it, she says, the more closely I studied it, I honestly felt dismayed by how it was shaping up. I paused on dismayed because I thought about, I'm not going to ding it. I spoke to a lot of others who felt the same way. Like, this is our future. More of the same. She also says she's a truth seeker who will focus on legislating. She also said she'll apply the same approach in the Senate as she did to her news gathering. To add to this news, she has other big news.
What?
She is 18 weeks pregnant, everybody.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
And her pregnancy was the deciding factor, she says, triggering the desire to run for office.
That's a lot at one time.
The only thing, take it from Kim, who is a mom.
Kim, how are you?
The only thing crazier than not jumping in this late would be not jumping in at all, she says, because I have a fight. I have to fight for what I believe is possible for California. Oh, there you go. Go ahead. You can hear a little bit of it if you want. Here we go.
California since I was a little
Oh, but there's
girl.
music on it.
I was raised by
cannot. No. I think I can't run it, right, Tony?
It'd be safer not to run it. I mean,
not trying because I already was all demonetized last week. Every time this war and all these barbaric things that go on with the war, and they just demonetize me. So
we get it. California is very important to her.
Yeah, we get it. Okay, so
and apparently she thinks Schiff and Porter and Lee aren't good enough candidates.
Thank you,
gotta jump
Kim.
in.
Thank you, Kim, for mentioning where my objection comes from.
We've got the cream of the crop. Are you kidding me? That's not good enough for you?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I love that everybody gets involved in the race. I love activism. I just had an activist on, in a different area. You may not see it as political activism. There's a lot of different kinds of activism. Human rights activism, animal rights activism.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's environmental activism, and I love all of those things. So I love that she's involved. But what Kim is saying is so accurate. It's like of all the Senate races, like that's the one I have two thoughts on it. A, as Kim has just said, you've got pretty good people circling that seat. Schiff, Porter, Lee. I mean, it's, the credentials are intensely good.
I mean, any one of them would be great.
Thank you. So
it's not, I'm going to pick one, but it's not like if any of them win, I'm going to be upset, right?
No, you could throw a dart at.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would also say, but this is, you can push back on me on this, but is because of the first thing we just said, I just think it's not particularly politically astute to run as a Democrat. I don't see how. Now, I understand you're a Democrat and you line up with those values that you see the Democratic Party having. So you can't really vote, or run as a Republican because those people who vote Republican are not really going to be those who you're going to campaign in front of or do stump speeches for, because everything you believe in, they don't believe in.
Yeah.
So you're caught. You want to run, you want to participate, you want to be relevant, but so sorry, in the end, I see this as, to put the best face on it, a good effort in a space that I just think you cannot make any headway in. And so I think it a fool's errand. But I've backed people before who I know were just doing it. They had no chance to win, and I've even sent them money at times in different races across the country because I believed in what they believe in. But here I think it's just...
Maybe we should have her on the show and see if she changes our mind.
Yeah, well, I will book her on the show, and we'll see. But I would say the same thing to her, like, why the hell would you run as a Democrat? I mean, and here's the other thing I would say, and people don't like to hear this, but this is the truth. Run for another office. Run for supervisor. Run for wherever you live. Run to really have an impact on your community. You can do it. Yeah. There are a number of different seats. You certainly have to see by now that local elections are critical. Run for the school board. There are so many ways you can make a difference. You don't have to be a U.S. senator.
Maybe she thinks because of her name recognition in Southern California, because she's been a public person for a while, that she got a little big for her britches. And she thought Senate was, is good enough for her now. But yeah, I agree. Start
Kim,
lower.
Do you think she's too big for her britches, Kim? Is that what you said?
A little bit. This is Senate. This is the big leagues, my friend.
I will have her on here. Will you tell her that you think that she's a little too big for her britches, Kim?
How are you? I will only say that behind her back. Judgy McJudgerson.
We could try ignoring it.
No. Yeah, I would not mention that.
I'll be rude, not to her face, but only when she's not here.
The way we say it now is we say, maybe she got out over her skis a little too. There are a lot of ways to couch it, Kim. too big for her britches is not one of them.
I'm just saying, you think you're a big TV anchor and people in Southern
Yeah.
California know you. Well, people in
Yeah.
Northern California don't know you, and this is the Senate, my friend.
Yeah, that's right, my friend.
I have a story for you.
All right.
You ready
Kim's
for
got
it?
a story for me. I don't know.
I
Tony,
saw-
am I ready?
The Mark Thompson
I'll
Show.
make it
All
quick
right, go
because
for
we're
it.
at the end of the line here. But this
All right.
story, I saw it in the chat and I had to look it up quickly. I should have done it earlier, but there was a pilot riding in the extra seat in the cockpit of a Horizon Air passenger jet who tried to shut down the engines in mid-flight. Had to be subdued by two other pilots. This guy, 44-year-old Joseph David Emerson, he's being held on 83 counts each of attempted murder and reckless endangerment, and 1 count of endangering an aircraft. San Francisco-bound flight diverted to Portland, Oregon, where it was met with officers from the Port of Portland who took Emerson into custody. Alaska Airlines, which owns Horizon, a regional carrier, said the crew reported a credible security threat related to an unauthorized occupant in the flight deck jump seat. One of the pilots told air traffic controller the man who posed the threat had been removed from the cockpit. We got the guy that tried to shut the engines down of the cockpit, and he doesn't sound like he's causing any issue in the back right now. I think he's subdued. Other than that, we want law enforcement to get on ground as soon as we're parked, they said. Yeah,
Wow.
guy reaches over and tries to shut down the engines right in the middle of the flight.
Oh,
86
my
counts, or was it
God.
86 or 83 counts of attempted murder now against him.
Wow, that is outrageous.
I guess he was an off-duty pilot.
Oh,
And for
my
whatever reason,
God.
yeah,
Wow, this investigation is going to be interesting.
that jump seat is a third seat in the cockpit, and they say it is often filled by an off-duty pilot, but it can be used by other airline employees or federal safety inspectors. So now they're going to have to really watch who they let sit in there. But you'd think an off-duty pilot would be safe, right? Now,
Jeez.
yeah.
That is wild. Wild story. Man. God, that guy needs to go away for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I can't even imagine. Thank God the other two pilots jumped on him, got him out of there.
Jeez, man. There was that Lufthansa flight a few years ago. You'll remember it. It went down. It was perfectly fine, and it went down. It killed everybody on board.
Yeah.
And the Lufthansa people were saying that we put our pilots through rigorous programs psychologically. We know that it wasn't the suicide of the pilot or whatever.
Sure.
So they look at mechanical, and they ultimately, of course, when they actually went into the pilot's personal life, they say that he did threaten suicide. He was fighting depression, and it was suicide. And he brought down 70 souls, I think 70 plus souls with him. So it's scary. I mean, you know, when you get on those planes, man, you trust the whole process, right?
Yep.
So, God, that's a scary story. Thank you, Kim. Kim,
you're
Kim
welcome.
closing with something strong.
Close it out on a happy note there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What do I need to do, Tony? I need to surrender my space here. But first, how about a big shout out, Pinky, with a
Big shout out.
$1 a day. Thank you, Pink. Thanks everybody who supports us through Patreon and PayPal and shares this show. Tony will drop some videos today. We'll drop a Law and Disorder. We'll drop some stuff with Karen. We always drop videos from the show, so you can share them across Facebook and other platforms. That really is the way to grow our audience. Tomorrow, the Pulitzer Prize winner, David K. Johnston. Who else is on tomorrow, Kim?
Wonderful things that are happening on the Mark Thompson Show.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's already going over to the After Party Live.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
The After Party Live starts now. Thank you, everybody who supports us and who joins us every day. And until tomorrow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
I actually have some anniversary stuff here also. All right, we got a lot of stuff still to do tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.